Sample 17. It's very shiny. You can get the color and the luster right now. In fact, we've already tested for this when we did our very first lab. And so we found that this cut a penny. We found that it did not cut glass. We found that the streak was kind of yellow-brown, perhaps. We see a lot of cleavage planes here, but it's impossible to tell which ones, it's impossible to count the number of cleavages and directions because there's so many different crystals in here. So just understand that it does have cleavage. I am not going to test this with acid because it does not have a visible reaction, but it does smell. It creates hydrogen sulfide gas, which makes the whole room stink. Here's sample 18. Should have noticed the shape that every one of these has. Are we seeing mostly right angles, or are we seeing 90 degree angles or not 90 degree angles? We can see repeated faces again and again there. So get the cleavage, number of directions and angles. We got a direction which is here, flat. We have a direction along there and a direction along there. That's why these things are shaped the way they are, because they break along those. This is softer than my fingernail. The streak this one leaves is white, and this will not react to hydrochloric acid. Sample 19. So when we catch the light there, we see that that is a cleavage plane. This is a cleavage face, and we'll see if there are any others. This surface is not catching the light. That is not a cleavage surface. This is the other side. It's parallel to that first side, so that is one. So let's see if this has any. And in fact, that is a cleavage surface as well, as we're seeing it catch the light. Here are a couple smaller pieces of that, and we can see the same thing. We're catching the light with that surface there, and we're catching it with that surface there. But this surface, dull and not reflective. So this has two directions of cleavage, and they are meeting at a distinct 90 degree angle, as we can see right there. Even though that's out of focus, we're seeing a distinct 90 degree angle. This sample cuts glass. It does not leave a streak. Does not react to hydrochloric acid. None of this week's samples are magnetic, so I'm not going to run that test. You know by now that magnetite is magnetic. Sample 20. We tested this a few days ago. We called it a different number at that point, but see if you can get color and luster for this. It has cleavage, but this is not the best cleavage sample. But we can see that there are cleavage faces. Sometimes from this we have to depend on the hardness. And it does not cut glass. And it definitely cuts the penny. See if I can get a little better view of that. It's carving into there. It's cutting the penny. This does not react to hydrochloric acid. Another example of the same mineral. This is still number 20, definitely different color, but there's a cleavage plane. There's a cleavage plane. There's a third cleavage plane. And here is what appears to be a fourth. These are crystal faces right there. So we have 4 cleavage planes meeting not at 90-degree angles. Sample 21. This is not what we would call good or perfect cleavage because the face is not super flat and smooth. It's wavy, yet we do see that it's going to split along that direction. So this is one direction of cleavage, poor. Poor cleavage in one direction. Hardness, this is extremely soft. I can cut it with my fingernail. And the streak looks a little bit grayish. Let's look at it on the black one. So it's kind of more of a white streak, really. No reaction to acid. This is the cleavage surface we're looking at. So while it is reflective, it is not flat and smooth. This is an example of poor cleavage. Number 22. See the color and the luster. This sample splits into extremely thin plates, and those plates are elastic, and this stuff is softer than my fingernail. And it leaves a whitish streak. Sample does not react to hydrochloric acid. '23, note the color. It's very dark. Close to black, although I do see a bit of green in there. Does it have cleavage? It has cleavage, but it's poor. I can catch reflections there, and I can catch it there, but for the most part, it's hard to see. This doesn't cleave into a great looking shape. However, as far as hardness is concerned, this cuts glass with a new cut right there underneath my finger. We'll make one at an angle to that so that we can see it. And there is another new one right there. This does not react to hydrochloric acid. And it doesn't leave a streak. Sample 24 has distinctive shape. The reason it has this shape is because it breaks along those cleavage planes, forming that shape. So we got to determine, are those 90-degree angles or are they not 90-degree angles? So I'm lining it up with something that does have 90-degree angles. See if we can tell the difference between those. This has a white streak. This has a hard time cutting the penny. yet I'm unable to cut it with my fingernail. It will cut my fingernail, so that should give you a pretty close idea of what the hardness is for this one. It clearly has 3 directions of cleavage. Here's a larger sample. You see perfect cleavage on that face. We're going to see perfect cleavage on that face, and then we'll see perfect cleavage on the big flat part. The sample reacts vigorously to hydrochloric acid. We'll stop this for part 1, and I'll do a part 2.